Okay. Tonight, I wanted us to look again at some Nisargadatta and I Am That from the book I Am That. And this is a short chapter, so I'll read it and then we'll be open for questions and comments. So the questioner begins, and he says, I must confess, I came today in a rebellious mood. I got a raw deal at the airline's office. When faced with such situations, everything seems doubtful. Everything seems useless. Nisargadatta. This is a very useful mood. Doubting all, refusing all, unwilling to learn through another. It is the fruit of your long sadhana practice. After all, one does not study forever. Questioner, enough of it. It took me nowhere. Don't say nowhere. It took you where you are now. It is again the child and its tantrums. I have not moved an inch from where I was. Nisargadatta. You began as a child and you will end as a child. Whatever you have acquired in the meantime, you must lose and start at the beginning. But the child kicks. When it is unhappy or denied anything, it kicks. Let it kick. Just look at the kicking. And if you are too afraid of the society to kick convincingly, look at that too. I know it is a painful business, but there is no remedy except one. The search for remedies must cease. If you are angry or in pain, separate yourself from anger and pain and watch them. Externalization is the first step to liberation. Step away and look. The physical events will go on happening, but by themselves, they have no importance. It is the mind alone that matters. Whatever happens, you cannot kick and scream in an airline office or in a bank. Society does not allow it. If you do not like their ways or are not prepared to endure them, don't fly or carry money. Walk. And if you cannot walk, don't travel. If you deal with society, you must accept its ways, for its ways are your ways. Your needs and demands have created them. Your desires are so complex and contradictory. No wonder the society you create is also complex and contradictory. Well, I do see and admit that the outer chaos is merely a reflection of my own inner disharmony. But what is the remedy? Don't seek remedies. Well, sometimes one is in a state of grace and life is happy and harmonious, but such a state doesn't last. The mood changes and all goes wrong. If you could only keep quiet, clear of memories and expectations, you would be able to discern the beautiful pattern of events. It is your restlessness that causes chaos. For 3 full hours that I spent in the airline office, I was practicing patience and forbearance. It did not speed up matters. Well, Nisargadatta, at least it did not slow them down as your kicking would have surely done. You want immediate results. We do not dispense magic here. Everybody does the same mistake, refusing the means, but wanting the ends. You want peace and harmony in the world, but refuse to have them in yourself. Follow my advice implicitly, and you will not be disappointed. I cannot solve your problem by mere words. You have to act on what I told you and persevere. It is not the right advice that liberates, but the action based on it. Just like a doctor, after giving the patient an injection, tells him, now keep quiet, do nothing more, just keep quiet. I am telling you, you have got your injection. Now keep quiet, just keep quiet. You have nothing else to do. My guru did the same. He would tell me something and then he said, now keep quiet. Don't go on ruminating all the time. Stop, be silent. Well, I can keep quiet for an hour in the morning, but the day is so long and many things happen that throw me out of balance. It is easy to say, be silent, but to be silent when all is screaming in me and around me, please tell me, how is it done? All that needs doing can be done in peace and silence. There is no need to get upset. Oh, it's all theory, which does not fit the facts. I am returning to Europe with nothing to do there. My life is completely empty. Nisargadatta. If you just try to keep quiet, all will come. The work, the strength for work, the right motive. Must you know everything beforehand? Don't be anxious about your future. Be quiet now, and all will fall in place. The unexpected is bound to happen, while the anticipated may never come. Don't tell me you cannot control your nature. You need not control it. Throw it overboard. Have no nature to fight or submit to. No experience will hurt you, provided you don't make it into a habit. Of the entire universe, you are the subtle cause. All is because you are. Grasp this point firmly and deeply and dwell on it repeatedly. To realize this as absolutely true is liberation. Well, if I'm the seed of my universe, then a rotten seed I am. By the fruit, the seed is known. What is wrong with your world that you swear at it? It is full of pain. Nisargadatta. Nature is neither pleasant nor painful. It is all intelligence and beauty. Pain and pleasure are in the mind. Change your scale of values and all will change. Pleasure and pain are mere disturbances of the senses. Treat them equally, and there will be only bliss. And the world is what you make it. By all means, make it happy. Only contentment can make you happy. Desires fulfilled breed more desires. Keeping away from all desires and contentment in what comes by itself is a very fruitful state, a precondition to the state of fullness. I'm going to read that again. Keeping away from all desires and contentment in what comes by itself is a very fruitful state, a precondition to the state of fullness. Don't distrust its apparent sterility and emptiness. Believe me, it is the satisfaction of desires that breeds misery. Freedom from desires is bliss. But there are things we need. What you need will come to you if you do not ask for what you do not need. What you need will come to you if you do not ask for what you do not need. Yet only few people reach this state of complete dispassion and detachment. It's a very high state, the very threshold of liberation. Well, I have been barren for the last 2 years, desolate and empty, and often was I praying for death to come. Well, with your coming here, events have started rolling. Let things happen as they happen. They will sort themselves out nicely in the end. You need not strain toward the future. The future will come to you on its own. For some time longer, you will remain sleepwalking as you do now, bereft of meaning and assurance. But this period will end, and you will find your work both fruitful and easy. There are always moments when one feels empty and estranged. Such moments are most desirable, for it means the soul had cast its moorings and is sailing for distant places. This is detachment, when the old is over and the new has not yet come. If you are afraid, the state may be distressing, but there is really nothing to be afraid of. Remember the instruction. Whatever you come across, go beyond. Well, the Buddha's rule is to remember what needs to be remembered. But I find it so difficult to remember the right thing at the right moment. With me, forgetting seems to be the rule. It is not easy to remember when every situation brings up a storm of desires and fears. How am I to fight desire? There's nothing stronger. The waters of life are thundering over the rocks of objects, desirable or hateful. Remove the rocks by insight and detachment. and the same waters will flow deep and silent and swift, in greater volume and with greater power. Don't be theoretical about it. Give time to thought and consideration. If you desire to be free, neglect not the nearest step to freedom. It is like climbing a mountain. Not a step can be missed. One step less, and the summit is not reached. So we're open to questions, comments.
Well, I was just struck once again, as I always am with Nisargadatta, with just the clarity with which he speaks, and the insightfulness and the perspective from which he is coming from, is he manages to convey it with such a clarity.
Yeah, well,
but as he says, the advice, the medicine isn't the cure. It's the taking it to the next step. It's the words are pointers, but it's not the cure.
Right, right. Well, when he speaks of the from where he speaks, from this background, this absolute awareness, that's what he means when he says, of the entire universe, you are the subtle cause. All is because you are. Grasp this point firmly and deeply and dwell on it repeatedly. To realize this as absolutely true is realization. So what is he talking about here? What is this this you that he's talking about? It's not the ego, right? It's not the little self that we've identified ourselves with. It's the self with a capital S, that background of absolute non-conceptual awareness. Because that is, everything else is. That's what he means when he says, all is because you are. Without that awareness, nothing is. And he's saying you are that awareness. So, but what is he telling the man here? Because this questioner seems to be suffering.
Well, I thought it was, I thought he said externalization.
Yes.
That's what he said was crucial, the ability to step outside yourself and almost see yourself objectively. And it was almost like if you could do that, you would see yourself kicking and screaming like an 8-year-old and be appalled.
Yes.
It's like, encouraging you to take your best self, the healthiest part of you, and externalize that. And with this healthy self, look at how your ego is behaving.
Yeah, that was so great. I wrote that down. There were so many sentences in there that
Yeah, it was just
passage every single week. And
yeah.
But it said externalization is the first step to liberation, to step out.
Yes, that's right, Regine.
And in the beginning, the search for remedies must cease.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, so much is the opposite of what we're told. You have to look for the cure,
Right.
And, you know, we need to satisfy the next desire. And he's saying it's the opposite. Like you get it satisfied, it just begets a new desire, which is so true.
Right. That's right. Also, you know what I like? Pain and pleasure are in the mind. Change your scale of values and all will change. So change what's important to us, right?
Mhm.
Because what we value really means what's important to us.
Well, yeah, and what you value right now is bringing the pain.
What do you mean?
He checks your scale of values, he's saying. So just like you said, so
Yeah,
so
change your scale of values and all will
right,
change.
because if you're in a lot of pain, then you're operating from poor values,
Yes.
right? Limited values, self-centered, anemic values, me, my, and
Yes.
mine.
Yes.
But if those values change, then you'll be suffering less of the slings and arrows that come from being so self-identified and so full of me thinking.
Yes.
So is he saying change your scale of values? Is he saying like, look at what you really value, like realize what you value the most?
Right.
Yes.
What you place importance on.
What are you giving importance to?
Okay, I didn't really understand that.
Yes. What are we giving importance to? Really in our daily life? What do we give importance to?
Getting things done.
Mhm.
Right.
Getting that, yeah, being productive. Like it's crazy. But
Yeah.
sometimes I step in and say, okay, the most important thing today is that I have a peaceful mind, no matter
Mhm.
what. And
Ah,
that changes everything.
that's right. That's right. And that's what he says, you know, in other chapters. He talks about earnestness. When you're truly earnest about this. And I think that's another way of saying if this is really important to you, peace, happiness, understanding yourself, watching yourself, seeing how this small me operates, knowing your true nature. If that's really important to us, then as you said, Rogine, everything changes. And yeah, when you see yourself kicking and screaming, either physically, emotionally, verbally, if you really can externalize and see that, it stops in the moment you actually see it.
I can verify that. That happened to me Friday when I was informed that I had been exposed to somebody with coronavirus, and I went up in the air. I got all excited, but at some point, I came back and I realized I was doing it. I was causing all of this panic, and I started to do some work and a little bit of reading and this and that, and I came to the conclusion that what was happening was that I was causing the conflict within myself. I was resisting what is. What is that I was exposed to the virus and there's nothing I can do about it. Yet I didn't want to admit to myself that I was trying to deny that reality. I did not want that to have happened. And as much as I protested, that's to the degree of the anxiety that I was experiencing. And it's amazing because there was a point there where I really got it. I mean, it's not learning, not book. I really got that the problem was I was trying to change, not accept what is. I was trying to change, and you can't do that. And as soon as I got that realization, the anxiety went away.
Yes.
I mean, it's just incredible. And in fact, I try to make it come back to make sure I'd like to test the goddamn thing. But it didn't. And I think what Nisargadatta to a large extent is trying to tell that guy is that there is this thing of self-awareness, and that's what you got to use to try to understand yourself. And the degree that you can understand yourself, that is the me, the center, and
Right.
that's the degree that you'll be able to quiet your mind. Because you realize that all of your feelings, everything, you generate them. I mean, I think, and the thought creates the feeling, and the feeling is pleasure or it's pain or it's whatever it is, but I'm the prime generator of it. It doesn't come from, a bird in a tree, or, the neighbor that's getting all upset, or, I don't know, something outside. I'm generating it. And to me, it's just, it's work time, because I mean, so I got that glimpse, but there's other occasions, things change, and you deal with it. That's it.
Good,
Right.
good, Ugo.
That's right. That's right.
So satisfaction of desires brings more misery.
Right.
Who would have thought that?
brings a little temporary happiness for a brief period.
Sure.
You have candy and it's like,
Mhm.
I
That's
wonder if it brings really happiness,
sugar
or if
high.
it takes away the anxiety of not having it.
Yeah, that's
Well, maybe you have to weigh put it on a scale, and how much pain are you willing to give up for pleasure?
Well, remember, he
Because
said,
they're the same coin, right? On one side is pain, on the other side is pleasure.
right.
Because eventually, in pursuing pleasure, at some point, it stops. It's finite, and then you want more, and that's when you get pain.
I found
Roundabout words.
I found it noteworthy that for me anyway tonight, he said to encourage contentment. We're always so full of fear and desire that, contentment gets left behind. But that's where he said some pieces, some silences in that state of contentment, being happy with what's immediate.
Yeah, well, if you can quiet the mind, it's the mind that creates all the mischief. So if the mind is quiet, there is no upset, there's no pleasure, there's no nothing.
Right.
There's that bliss that he's talking about, and that's hard for me to accept. But I at a level I know it. I got to talk. I'm Italian. What are you going to do? I got to talk. It's part of that conditioning thing that comes into play. But
it's
but-
interesting. But what Bill said about we want to have something to get rid of the pain of not having it. Like the feeling of like angst of like, I need it, or I'm not, I don't have enough, like whatever. But I think there was that thing about externalization. Like if we can just observe that, angst that I feel from not having something, then I'm not driven by that. Those feelings, those negative feelings of not having, like I don't have to use getting something to get rid of them. I'm just observing them, stepping up.
But I think if you kind of look at things that, just go through your whole inventory, just go through your whole life. I mean, I'm going through about 87 years of life, and I see that objects and things, they initially gave me great joy and pleasure. And it's amazing that it doesn't take long for you to reach the point of that was great, but okay, what's next? I mean, I started out with a rowboat, and that was great. I had more fun with that thing, and then it had to be a little bit with a motor, and then it got bigger, and then I went into sail and this and that and the other thing. Started out with a little house, and went with a bigger house and this and that. what I'm understanding now through this work, that's how we've been brought up to think. But that thinking doesn't give you the peace of mind that we're all looking for. That's not where it's at.
Mhm.
So it's interesting if I mean, myself, I really understand. Yeah, there are toys that I like and this and that and everything, but that's not where it is. I've seen it. You buy a new car, you treat it like a baby for a couple of weeks, and then it gets a dent. You feel kind of bad, and then a couple of months go by and it gets a scratch, and you look at it and say, "That's a shame." And then after a while, you even forget to wash the damn thing. Now, hell with it. It's a piece of transportation. So you rationalize it, and then you go on to, and maybe you find another car to replace that old one, which is probably only a couple of years old, and just start the process again. And there's a point at which you have to go with the work here. That absolutely none of that stuff is where it's at.
Right. So at some point, there's a detachment from the objects. They mean less to us.
When he says, well, there are a few things when he says, whatever you come across, go beyond. Whatever you come across, go beyond. The unexpected is bound to happen, while the anticipated may never come.
The what's bound to happen?
The unexpected is bound to happen, while the anticipated will never come. And you know, when this guy says to him, what about remedies? Tell me what to do. What am I supposed to do? You know, he keeps asking, what am I to do? And Nisargadatta is telling him, just be quiet. But he's also telling him, really, he said to him, look inside yourself. Inside yourself is the answer. If you look inside yourself, if you're really looking. And he says, everybody does the same mistake, refusing the means, but wanting the ends. So we have to ask, what are the means that he's talking about? Then he goes into a more global, you want peace and harmony in the world. And then he takes it back, but refuse to have them in yourself. Mm. So that's it. The means would be.
He's saying you're too lazy to do the work.
Well, the means is seeing that we don't have peace and harmony inside ourselves. And why don't we have peace and harmony inside ourselves? Well, part of it, yes, is the conditioning, Ugo, that you're talking about, how we've been conditioned and how we are motivated by our thoughts, our thinking, our images that we have of ourselves. But then he's saying, look inside yourself, find the peace and harmony inside yourself, change your values, and all will change. So what is important to us? And what does that mean, change our values? What do we value? Do we value truth? Do we value harmony? Do we value goodness? And if we really looked inside at our everyday life, can we say that our life reflects those values of truth, harmony, and goodness? And do not those values purify the mind?
Interesting.
Right?
Mhm.
Because really, the mind isn't going to be peaceful.
Mhm.
How can the mind be peaceful? The mind is always moving, jumping, dividing, separating. So we do have to clean that out. It's almost like cleaning out the closet of our mind every day, maybe every moment. And how do we do that? Well, maybe we do that by looking to see what's really important to us. What are our values? And are we living out those values of truth, harmony, and goodness?
I think it also requires trust that, and because there's this story I think I have that if I don't want anything, like I won't get anything. You know, that you know, you kind of have to go after whatever. But one of the things that you read was that what you need will come to you if you don't go after what you don't need.
Yes.
Like that there is a natural flow to if we're
Mhm.
Yes.
in alignment with our values.
Right.
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 It doesn't have to be this efforting.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, there's this whole story of like you have to be ambitious to get anything.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you get nothing. So,
Yeah.
but that's you know, it's not a true story. And I've seen the other story too, where when people who just are surrendered and at peace and are in alignment with their values, like their lives flow. I mean, they're not perfectly, you know,
Mhm.
Right.
but they have what they need.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
Well, you know, that I think that brings up the point. If you can look at just how conditioned we are, that we conduct our day. Our day is it's all pre-programmed based on what the content of our consciousness is, and that's where all our thinking comes from, and that's what runs our life, and that's this ego, this me, this center, which is so on the psychological side, is the driving thing that creates all these thinking, thoughts, problems, and so on and so forth. So to a certain extent, I think the how is just letting it happen, taking the I out of the picture. Let that sensor sit put them in a chair someplace. And it works. It really works. I mean, I've experimented with this thing. Get up without trying to run the show. You just get up and okay, I'm on the floor and the next thing you know, I mean, I don't know, but I find myself in the bathroom. I've got a nature call. And, you know, I don't have, it's not thinking about it or anything like that. And then the next thing you know, oh, all right. So you end up in the kitchen and you're going to make something and there's no big deal about it. You just let it happen and try to really concentrate on not thinking of what you're supposed to do. It'll come to you. And it's the damnedest thing. I mean, strange things happen. You want stuff to happen, but when you don't think about it, that's when it happens.
Right.
It seems.
Yes.
So I think to a certain extent, the moral that I get from that whole thing, or what's important to me for that whole thing, is that there's something that I still have troubles understanding, and that is that life, there is this bliss, but the bliss is not there when the I is there. When I'm thinking about it, when I'm trying to run the show, it's not there, because the problem is that this thing, this I, this ego that I've created, when it tries to run the show, it's prejudiced. It's been contaminated by all the years of just being conditioned to a certain way of doing things. And when you can get that out of the way, you talk about pleasure or something. Now, I haven't been able to get to that beyond stage, but by God, when I can quiet my mind I can just sit in a chair and look outside the window. I have a wonderful water view that I can look at Quarry Creek and so on and so forth. And without trying to describe it or anything, there's just an unbelievable sense of tranquility and almost serenity, if you will.
Nice.
And, you know, if I could really stay with it, that's really all there is.
Mm.
I mean, there isn't anything else.
Right.
You know, all the stuff that's in the foreground, there's a couple of flowers that I have and the window and stuff. That's not necessary. That's attention that I'm addressing to it. But if I can get that attention and just be with what is without naming it, without verbalizing it, there's a peace of mind that comes, which is quite unique. And it's just, you know, it's beautiful. I mean, I hate to use the word beautiful to describe it, but it is.
It is. Well, you know, it sounds like what you're saying connects with what Rojim was saying about trust. In other words, you were saying, Ugo, that if I can trust that if I get the me out of the way, that things will just be the way they're supposed to be. Life goes on. We do think there are things that are happening that we didn't force. We didn't push life. We didn't resist life.
Not forcing
It's
it.
unfolding itself.
Unforced.
Unforced. And the me is not, when we're able to get the me out of the way. But we have to have enough trust that if I get the me out of the way, things will happen. Life is not going to stop. I'm not going to become this, I don't know, this zombie.
Well, if you do use the sincerity and you use the effort and you really want to do this, and this is not just a form of entertainment or, you know, 1 hour a week or whatever, you put the time and effort into it, at some point, at least I've been able to find that this whole notion of the I and the separation of the I, the observer and the observed, and all the rest of all that goes with it, the brain, I verified it. I have verified that's how it works. It's not a question of accepting it. It is. It's the truth. There's no question about it anymore. So I do have the faith in it, and I do it. It's not faith, really.
No.
Because faith, you're
right.
It's what it is. I mean, how can I mean, I've proven it to myself. There's no question in my mind that, you know, however you want to describe it, and it's impossible to word it, but there is this present awareness, and that's what gives this Hugo. That's what makes it be conscious to not only to myself but to the world. But there's this thing behind it which you can't describe, which doesn't have values. There is no good or bad. It's the awareness of it. It's just a power. And I don't know how to describe it. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not up. It's not down. It's like a power.
Yes.
And, you know, there's just no other way of describing it. And I keep referring to this at times. You go out in the night on a cloudless night, especially with no moon. You look up in the sky. I mean, it's infinite, and that's only just the tiniest kernel of what's out there.
Right.
And you know, it puts. I mean, when I think about me and that, you got to be kidding. I got worries. I got problems. You got to be kidding. It's infinite, you know. And I just get a sense of knowing that this is right. I can't get there. I can't find that great thing, but this is as close as I've ever come. And I know it's there if I'm willing to do the work. And lots of times I'm not. I don't want to bother with it. I'm getting too close to having to give everything up, and I don't want to.
All right. Well,
I want to hold on. And,
that's good. That was a really good description of your process, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you sharing it.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any reaction to what was read tonight?
Yeah, there's a paradox, it seems, between, as you guys mentioned, and I think we're all aware that we need to have sort of great faith and doubt and determination, to proceed on this sort of spiritual path. But yet we're always in a way of getting in the way of ourselves. We're not being quiet. We're trying too hard and getting in the way. So there's a paradox I find in my own situation of, I know I've got to try hard, but not too hard, to become awake.
Mhm.
Yeah. See, but it's not about trying. It's not about trying. It's like, there's something that calls. It's calling you,
Yes.
right? It's calling you.
Yep.
And sometimes it doesn't call, but for the most part, it's continually calling you. And in that call, there's a call to watch and to see when this me is in the way and is preventing that silence, that quiet, so that there is clarity, so that there is a knowing of what you really are. And with that clarity, interestingly enough, with that clarity, there's compassion, there's empathy, there's compassion, and then there's right action. So it's nothing about I have to do. It's really about a seeing. In the seeing is the doing.
Mhm.
In the seeing is the doing. And there's a call to seeing. And then you realize that it's all awareness, that it's all appearances in awareness, and that you're not separate from it as awareness. There's nothing that is not of and in awareness.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the line.
Yes, didn't he? Did he just say that? Where did he say that? Yes. Oh, you mean about all is because you are.
Yes.
Of the entire universe, you, awareness, are the subtle cause. All is because you are.
Right.
Grasp this point firmly and deeply and dwell on it repeatedly, but not with force, because what is it that's saying I have to? That's the me. It's so interesting. This me, it can be so obvious and it is so subtle
Right.
at the same time.
Slippery.
Yes, it's a slippery thing,
Right.
but that's okay.
Well, the other thing that comes to my mind is that, for me anyhow, helps me understand it better. Awareness was here before I was born.
Right.
Awareness is going to be here after I die.
Right.
So what happens as I develop a sense of self and I separate, I create this artificial thing. But the thing that gives light, gives consciousness to the me is that awareness that's in back of it. So that to me, I mean, I don't have a problem with accepting that awareness is what's the non-dual power of the universe, if you will.
Right.
I did this, I listened to this like 10-minute podcast recently with Joseph Goldstein.
Yeah.
Oh,
And-
yes. He's a Buddhist.
Yeah. But it was so great because
He is great. He is great.
it was sort of about the externalization that we were talking about earlier, that it was the first liberation. But he said all day long we use the word I, like I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm this, I'm that. And so the meditation was that everything that you feel, you're like, pain is arising, peace is arising, anger is arising. Instead of saying I'm angry, I'm tired, lonely, I'm this, that you say, this is arising, which it felt so different. And it made me realize that the I that I just say to myself all day long, now I have to, effort is.
It's a good practice for disidentifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was helpful. It was really helpful. And
Good.
very I.
Yeah, we're always qualifying this I, right?
Mhm.
We're always qualifying it. I'm tired, I'm hot. We're always qualifying it. Yeah.
And it seems that every time we use the I, we're reinforcing it, we're strengthening it.
Of
It's like,
course.
looking at a thought and not giving up the thought, rather than just letting it be and letting it go by. To me, that's very powerful. I mean, I look at myself doing that, and geez, but it's again, like you say, Rosalind, it's not how we've been brought up. It's not in the realm of thinking that way. We've been taught a completely different way of thinking, and as you get a better understanding of that, then you don't really have to think about it. It just falls into place. I mean, it just becomes, you see it happening at some point.
Yes. Yes.
Bill, getting back to your question of the paradox and the struggle, a number of religions, like with the Bhagavad Gita, with Krishna and Arjuna, which you know that story, right?
Yeah.
And Krishna is driving the chariot, right? So Arjuna gets to pick, what he wants. Who does he want on his side? And he picks Arjuna. And Arjuna drives the chariot. If you've ever seen those pictures with Arjuna driving the chariot with 5 horses, which is very significant, right? It's like the 5 senses.
Right.
And so he's picked Arjuna to drive. And also, like in Christianity, it says, thy will be done. Not my will, but thy will be done. Or another longer way to say it is not my egoic will, but the will of the self, right? So what we're really looking to do is we're really looking in a subtle way to connect with this power that is us, and there's another thing within Hinduism, like who is the doer of all works, right? And it gets back to this idea of not being the doer. It's saying the ego isn't the doer. It's the self with a capital S that's a doer. But in order to become aware of that self, you have to relinquish the facade of the ego. And so this externalization that you guys are talking about and everything, all those things are steps in a recognition that this egoic self is not who we are. And so when, Paul, you were talking about disidentification before, we can disidentify, but we still identify with something. In other words, whatever it is, we still identify with, we always need to identify with something. I am. Like, I am that. It's very interesting. Or I am that I am. There's always a sense of identity. But the question is what is our sense of identity? Is it the ego or is it the self with a capital S? So to make that connection, we have to, like this, be quiet, which is the relinquishment of the ego, and allow ourselves to become aware of this self, which is really the power within all things. It's really the doer of all works. And as Evelyn was saying, it's that sort of stepping back and just sort of listening that's the first step, and the listening is in the effort of thy will be done. It's that, you know, we have this mechanism of a body, mind, these tools that we use, but those tools can be used by the illusory self, the ego,
Mhm.
or they can be used by the real self, which we are. So the paradox is not really like paradox, right? You know what paradox is. It's paradox. There's no such thing really as a paradox. Paradox is just really a lack of perspective, right? So the paradox is when you're seeing something that looks the same, and that's what happens with us. We think is, you know, oh, it's my ego, but is it your ego? And so it's that relinquishment of the egoic self, and just to listen and to be able to recognize that actually there is no ego. You know, all of this is the self. There's only the self. And all we're looking to do is recognize that, so that we can basically release and relinquish all the struggles that go within that notion of being a separate self.
Right. Yes.
Well said.
Well said.
Although, not to quibble about technicalities, but I don't know if the self with a capital S, and this sounds like crazy parsing of words, I don't know that the self with a capital S is identified.
That's right.
There's no identity
Right.
in the self with a capital S.
You just are it.
Yeah.
Well, see, when you're saying identity, you're still thinking about it from a personal sense, which is separate. So like I'm identifying as this or that.
Right, right.
But when I'm talking about identity, I'm talking about I am that.
Ah,
I am
I
that
see.
I am.
uh-huh. I see what you're saying. Yes, yes.
So this Nisargadatta, he's talking from this place where he recognizes he is the self. And you're right, there is no separation. And in a way, I think the I am that I am was the best way to say it, because
Right.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
a dualistic expression.
Exactly.
Right. Well,
yeah.
any closing other thoughts? Well, Evelyn, this was a wonderful selection.
Oh, good.
Great, such a
Yeah.
great meeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Good.
Thanks, Evelyn. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you all, and
Thanks,
we'll
everyone.
all see you next week, I hope.
Thank you all for coming.
Bye now.
Buonanotte.
Have a
Good
good week.
Thank you.
Buonanotte a tutti, sì.
Buonanotte.
Buonanotte.